Well, hey guys, welcome to Inspirations for Your Life. If this is your very first time here, I want to take the opportunity to say welcome and thank you so much for choosing to join me on the show. If you've been here one time or many times before, I want to take the opportunity to say thank you. And of course, I want to say the words welcome back. It's always great to have friends, colleagues, and associates that appreciate the content that I produce and want to keep improving their lives. Hey, friends, if you have not checked out my new book, be sure to do that. Train to Driven. Pretty much the answers to keeping you from burnout. All right, guys, don't forget to check out believemeachieve.com. If you're thirsty, if you're hungry, or what have you, feel free to go get yourself an RO water. Mine is pretty good because it has water. The RO water, fresh, and it has lemon, which is really, really delicious. All right, guys, without any further ado, let's get into the show. All right. This is Inspirations for Your Life. How People Lock in a New Direction, Series 5, Show 17. And it is episode number 7, guys. Yes, this ends the master topic of the week. We start a brand new one tomorrow. This episode of Inspiration for Your Life with myself, John C. Morley, serial entrepreneur, engineer, marketing specialist, video producer, podcast host, coach, keynote speaker, graduate student, passionate lifelong learner, and now a published author, exploring how people stop drifting and lock in a real lasting direction in life. This is not about motivation, guys. This is about transformation that actually sticks. And I know those are things that a lot of people don't really equate with the two, but they do connect with each other. Because you see, real world change is not created in a single moment or a second. It's built through structure, repetition, and identity over time. And most people, well, they miss the boat on that. They think change is only emotional, but change is more than emotion, it's a structure. Let's break it down together, okay? Let's start with the core shift. Most people drift through life because, well, they rely on impulses instead of a design or a plan. They react instead of decide. And we've talked about the importance this week about being proactive rather than reactive. They repeat instead of evolving. Well, that's what they do. But when someone begins to understand how direction is actually built and orchestrated, everything magically changes. Because you see, direction is not found, guys. Direction is created. And I think when you understand that, you'll appreciate this, that once it's created, it must be reinforced. And I think that's something, again, that a lot of people in life, they tend to miss that whole concept. And again, that's something that a lot of people wish they knew the truth to. But then again, they actually don't. So that's a that's a really big problem, guys. A really really big problem that I hope a lot of people will actually choose to understand. But it is important to know why this works this way, because change does not happen, as I said, overnight, guys. It does not happen overnight. So how change actually locks in? Let's talk about that. How change locks in. So decisions create direction. Every shift begins with a conscious choice. That's right, a conscious choice. A conscious choice to either be doing something or to not be doing something. That is really the awareness and understanding that I want you guys to realize today, is that understanding, that little bit of a moment where you're like, wait a minute, maybe I should be doing this differently. Maybe I should be saying something differently. Maybe I should be feeling different. Maybe I should be thinking different. That's what actually moves the needle. And we've talked about the needle before. So on old meters, the needle basically would move with any type of volts or electricity. So when we say moves the needle, we mean what's going to cause it to move forward. And so moving the needle is just an old terminology to show that something is changing, even though it might be very slight. So, ladies and gentlemen, commitment means change. You see, without commitment, change collapses. Change collapses. I think that's another one that a lot of people wish they knew, but they don't always knew. And they're like, I wish I knew that. And, don't beat yourself in the head because you don't know that. I think the fact that you're here now and you want to make this change is really one of the biggest and greatest things that you can actually do in your life. So give yourself a pat on the back for coming today and watching the show. So consistency, guys, um, locks progress. Repetition will build the stability. Repetition will build the stability. And again, I know these are just crazy things, but they're truth. Consistency locks you in, it hones you in, and the repetition makes you stable, makes you reliable. I think that's an important thing to note. You know, what does that mean for people? I think for a lot of people, it means, well, it means different things. So habits, ladies and gentlemen, they reinforce identity. What you repeat defines who you become. Let me say that again. What you repeat defines who you become. Yeah. What you repeat defines who you become. So identity drives behavior. We probably know that. But self-perception shapes action. Our self-perception, which you might say, well, gee, John, that doesn't mean much. But yeah, your perceptions actually cause you to take or not take specific actions in life. I think that's a very important thing. Okay. And ladies and gentlemen, behavior creates results. Behavior creates the results, but actions determine the outcomes. So behavior creates the results, but action determines the outcomes. That's another very interesting one that I think a lot of us don't think about is, everybody wants to rush and do something because, the Joneses are doing it. But is this in alignment with who I am right now? Or am I just trying to do something for another crazy reason? I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Okay. I know some of you are saying to me, John, this doesn't make a lot of sense, but really it does make sense. It makes a lot of sense. So much sense that you could understand one thing. And what you can understand is that this can make a very big change in your life. Okay? It can make a very, very big change in your life. And if this makes a very, very big change in your life, then, and only then, guys, can you actually move this forward. And you might say to me, John, I don't really know how to move anything forward because nothing seems to click with me. All right, I get that. I think the best way to understand this is to think about where you are right now in your life, not where you were yesterday, not where you're going to be tomorrow or next week, but think about where you are in your life right now at this very moment. Because, ladies and gentlemen, results build the proof. Okay? Results build the proof, but proof strengthens confidence. Result builds the proof, but proof, right, strengthens the confidence. And that's another one of those ones where people are like, oh, gee, I wish I knew what was going on, right? I wish I knew about that. And I think for whatever reason, sometimes things don't click for us because maybe we're expecting things at the wrong time or on our timeline, but not on other people's timelines. So that's the thing to definitely, understand. Let's move forward with this. Our belief, ladies and gentlemen, sustains momentum. Our belief sustains momentum. And so when we say our belief sustains momentum, we have to understand that our mindset will always fuel the persistence. So our belief gets us going, right? It gets the engine started. But it's actually our mindset that fuels. It's kind of like, when we turn on the car, the spark plug, the alternator, that gets the car going. That gets the momentum of the engine started. But the mindset, the juice that keeps the car going is our fuel, right? And I think if we know what our fuel is, then we can actually make positive change in our lives. I'm not saying that that's going to be easy, and sometimes getting the fuel might be harder than figuring out what fuel you need. But once you know what fuel you need, then you need to go get it. You need to go get it. That's an important thing, guys. You have to go get it. And so momentum compounds, guys. The growth. Small wins multiply over time. Small wins, guys, they multiply over time. So momentum compounds the growth. But the small wins keep us excited to keep going, because when we see the results are multiplied, when we see that it's amped up, that, hey, wow, this is like amazing, we want to just become all involved. And so a part of it is emotional, guys. Another part is not emotional. I think that's a very important thing for us to understand, is that when we're making decisions in life, right, we can't make them on emotion. We have to make them on the truth. We have to make them on facts, right? We have to make them on facts. That's important. Discipline, guys, stabilizes the outcomes. This one stabilizes the outcomes. And it also prevents the collapse of systems. It prevents the collapse of systems. And again, this is something that you're hearing, but words don't mean anything directly. Stabilizes outcomes, right? We stay disciplined. And the structure that we have prevents the collapse. Let's see if I can give that to you a little better way. So you're playing football, or you're playing baseball. The discipline in practicing every day will stabilize our outcomes so we can become a better player. But it is the structure of those days, those times, that make it work. There was somebody that had this very interesting shirt on a few days ago at school, and it said something I've never seen before, but it's a very interesting phrase. And it says, don't let the fear of striking out keep you from playing the game. Think about that again for a moment. Don't let the fear of striking out prevent you from playing the game. So let's say that another way. Don't let the fear of being unsuccessful prevent you from trying to be successful. Don't let the fear of taking a risk prevent you from taking some risks. Does that make sense? And so these are things we don't just see as words, but these are important parts of our life that we can reflect on. Okay? Important parts we can reflect on. So we know about progress, and we know about discipline. And when we know these things are viable, we know that we can have a very interesting life. Okay? We know that. We know that. So keep execution alive, and structure prevents the relapse. So our structure prevents the relapse, and then we can order in that way to protect the noise. Because I think sometimes we don't do what we want to do. You know why? Because we're too stuck on the noise around us. So structure will prevent any relapse, and order will protect the direction. So when we have some structure, right, to practice, to do something, and we keep following that structure, we are going to get better, whether we know it or not. Focus, ladies and gentlemen, removes distraction. That shouldn't be new. But focus removes distraction. And clarity, what does clarity do? Clarity does something pretty unique. Clarity eliminates the noise. And we just talked about how important it is to get rid of the noise. So clarity is important. Focus removes the distraction that we might currently have. Maybe we're studying and maybe it's our phone, so we need to silence it or turn it off, right? Maybe it's our, let's say, compulsion that we want to go check email. That's not related to what we're doing. And those are all distractions. You know, some people might decide they have their pen, so they're gonna keep clicking it because they just like to play, but that's a distraction, right? That's a distraction. Focus will always remove the distraction. So if we stay focused, clarity will eliminate the noise that we're trying to get rid of. Repetition, ladies and gentlemen, will build mastery. Consistency will develop the skill. Let me say that again. Repetition will always build mastery. Consistency will truly hone you in to develop the skill. Oh, I don't want to do that again. I've done it so many times. Repetition is a teacher. Repetition gets us to see things differently than the way we first saw them. So repetition builds mastery, and consistency will develop the skill. It will develop the skill and the depth behind it. Now, mastery, guys, will build confidence. Sure it will. But it is the competence that reinforces the execution. Wow, that's so mastery will always build confidence, right? But competence reinforces the execution. And guess what? We're in this endless positive loop where we keep doing more and more and more and more, and we keep getting better. The more I believe myself can do, the more I can do, the more I believe myself. Let's take that from a wealth foundation, okay? The more I have gratitude in myself, the more I expect money to come. The more I expect money to come, the more gratitude I have for myself. And that could be a whole loop, guys. It just goes back and forth and back and forth. And I think that's a very, very important thing. Very important thing. I think when we start to notice these, okay, life changes for us. Confidence, ladies and gentlemen, strengthens the action as well. Our confidence will strengthen the action, which is strengthening the task, which is strengthening the method, the procedure. But it's the belief that improves following through. The belief that improves following through. So confidence will always strengthen the action that we'll get better at something. We'll be more skilled, right? But the belief always improves the follow through, right? The sustainability. And that brings us to my next point. Action will always sustain a direction. Action always sustains a direction. Movement, on the other hand, keeps the alignment intact. So action sustains the direction. Movement keeps alignment intact. So action, I'm going to practice every day to become a better golfer. Okay. The movement of me practicing to become a better golfer will keep my alignment intact, and therefore I will become a better golfer. Direction becomes identity, and behavior defines the self-concept. So our direction becomes who we are. which, by the way, are linked to our core values, how we're wired. Okay. Direction becomes identity. Behavior defines the self-concept. It defines the self-concept, which again is made up by our perceptions and how we are wired. Identity drives success. The identity drives success. Who you believe you are shapes the outcomes. Your identity will always drive success, but who you believe you are will shape the outcomes of that. Repetition locks transformation. Permanent repetition locks transformation. You get in that loop, you keep doing this over and over and over and over and over again, right? Question for you. Why most people fail to change is probably what you want to know. Here's the reason. Most people do not change is not because they lack the knowledge. Most people are incredibly smart. It is because they lack the structure necessary. The people that don't become good athletes are not because they don't have the athletic skill or the smarts to do it. It's because they lack the structure of the program, which is why they go to a trainer. They start strong, right? You probably know this. They start very strong. Like you feel they're never going to be, like, let's say, messed with. But then out of the blue, they stop. It's like the people on New Year's Eve. They say, oh, well, I'm going to go to the gym every single day. Great. But I'm going to wait until the 2nd. Fine. But I'm going to go every single day. And they go every single day for 1 week, for 2 weeks, for 3 weeks, or maybe by the end of the month, they're like, you know what? I'm kind of busy today. I'm not going to go today. And then once they break that pattern, they stop going to the gym. Then they slowly drift. And it just seems like this isn't working for them anymore. That's what it seems like. They try again. And then guess what happens? They reset. And the cycle repeats. Oh, I'm not meant to go to the gym. I never do. Because you don't stay structured. But repetition, ladies and gentlemen, without structure does not create progress. Let me say that again. Repetition without a structure does not create a progress. So, if you have a structure, but you don't have repetition, you don't get progress. If you don't have structure, you don't have repetition, you don't get progress. If you have repetition and no structure, you don't get a progress. So, no repetition with structure, no progress. No structure with repetition, also no progress. You know, it's a lot of work. It's not something you do in 5 minutes. So a lot of people don't want to put the extra effort in. What does it do? It creates a sense of frustration in their mind. And they start to feel a little bit uncomfortable. So they don't want to be uncomfortable, so they stop. And I said to you guys that success doesn't lie where it's comfortable. It starts where it's uncomfortable. Not painful, but just uncomfortable. The break point moment. Old habits will fade. When new repetition is strong enough, new standards will rise to the top. And the expectations will begin to shift expectations. And they will increase performance. Baseline resets. And the results now become predictable. They become predictable. But oftentimes there has to be a slight falling for this to take place. So systems replace randomness. Stability replaces chaos. So systems replace randomness. Stability replaces chaos. Another way of saying that is we need structure and we need repetition. That's all we're doing, guys. We're saying that in a different way. We're saying that in a completely different way. That's important, guys. Really important. So uncertainty control replaces the drift. Intention replaces reaction. Okay. Clarity replaces confusion, and focus replaces that noise. Growth becomes normal. Progress becomes, well, default behavior. And direction stays intentional. Nothing is accidental anymore. You become what you build. You see, ladies and gentlemen, your identity is formed through the execution of what you do and don't do. Now, here's the kicker. The real truth most people will always miss. You do not rise to your goals. Nope. You fall to your systems. What does that mean? Your life is not shaped by what you want. It is shaped by what you repeat. And you see, repetition is stronger than intention. This can be physically, this can be mentally. What you repeat, you get. What you want, you don't. That's interesting. So every time, ladies and gentlemen, this is true, how people actually lock into a life, a new life, when people finally change permanently, it is not because they become more motivated. Nope. It's because they became more structured. They stopped negotiating with themselves. They stopped restarting. They stopped waiting for perfect timing, because there never will be a perfect time. Instead, they built rhythm. They built consistency. They built identity through repetition. Remember, we need repetition and we need structure. Can't have success without either. And that is when everything just will start to shift. The final transformation, guys, and point is this: real change happens when action becomes consistent and consistency becomes your identity. Your identity becomes automatic, atomic, and the behavior becomes your direction, and you lock in. And this is when, ladies and gentlemen, life stops being random and it starts being intentional. Hope that makes sense to everyone. This week, we're covering things pretty amazing, and we're wrapping this up. But it's more about inspiration. It's about awareness. It's about turning into structure, and structure turning into identity. Because once your actions become consistent, your direction becomes permanent. And once your direction becomes permanent, your life becomes intentional. Live an intentional life, and you feel like you're a new person. Ladies and gentlemen, you can catch the full episodes of my shows and all my great content at believemeachieve.com, because clarity is not enough. Execution is what locks everything in. What are you waiting for? Start being consistent and have structure, and your goals will become a reality. Have a great one, everyone.